Paul Verhoeven's original 1987 RoboCop is my favorite movie ever. That doesn't mean I think it's the best movie ever, or that it's a perfect movie, or that you can't touch it, or anything else specific like that. It just happens to be my favorite. Part of that probably involves specific circumstance. I was 6 when it came out, and I didn't see it until I was at least 8. But I loved RoboCop right off the bat as a kid because, well, it was about robots and cops and explosions and bigger robots. But also because it was about blood and boobs and swear words and all kinds of other stuff I knew I wasn't supposed to be seeing. And there were action figures too, which was good because then you could recreate scenes from the movie once your parents realized it was rated R and wouldn't actually let you watch it again.
RoboCop! Criminals, give up! Surprise, RoboCop! Meet your match!
But what really cemented it for me is that unlike every single other goofy damn thing I loved as a kid, when I watched RoboCop again as what today passes for an adult, RoboCop actually got better. Yeah, the robots and the blood and the boobs are all still there, but it's also a good movie. In fact, it's a great movie, easily among the very best of the 1980s and one of the best action movies ever. And I'd argue one of the great all-time modern science fiction films, right up there with Blade Runner and Moon. And the reason for that is actually pretty simple. RoboCop is smart, not pretentious, not ponderous, not straining unnecessarily hard for greater depths or ladling on a bunch of heavy-handed symbolic narrative because it doesn't trust its own foundational building blocks. No, the whole thing just feels beat for beat, scene for scene, like they went over the whole damn script and every step of the way asked themselves, what's the smart decision we could make here? The film's premise is very simple. It's the near future in the once great city of Detroit, Michigan. Crime is so bad and the city is so broke that the mayor has sold control of the police force to a corporation called Omni Consumer Products. With the outraged cops threatening to strike rather than become mere OCP employees, the company is looking into alternative forms of law enforcement. Old guard corporate jerkface Dick Jones wants to replace cops with robots called Ed 209s, but they keep malfunctioning. So instead, fresh young corporate jerkface Bob Morton gets the go-ahead for his replacement cop project, which involves using cyborgs with human brains. And not long after reassigning the city's most reliable officers to its most hopelessly crime-blighted areas, wouldn't you know it, they wind up with a perfect candidate when a do-gooder super cop named Alex Murphy gets blown to pieces by the drug kingpin and gang leader Clarence Boddicker. Morton's OCP team get a hold of the remains and Frankenstein's Murphy's corpse and brain into RoboCop, who is awesome. Like, if the whole rest of the movie was just that, we'd be fine, right? But instead, things start to unravel. RoboCop recovers some of his human memories and sets out to solve his own murder. But when he moves to take down Boddicker...
I work for Dick Jones! Dick Jones! He's the number 2 guy at OCP!
And then he goes to take down Dick Jones... It turns out OCP dropped a secret directive into RoboCop's programming that makes him unable to take action against what are, after all, his employers. Geez, it's as though letting private business interests be in control of public law enforcement is a terrible idea. Fortunately, RoboCop is rescued by his former partner who helps him repair his wounds, eliminate Boddicker's gang, and expose Dick Jones, first to his colleagues and then to high-altitude oxygen.
Dick, you're fired!
Thank you.
Oh, and they also get to douse one of the bad guys in toxic waste, so he turns into melty goo and then gets liquefied by a car crash. Oh, this movie is so awesome. But yeah, this is your basic sci-fi action premise. Cyborg hero, bad guy, bad robot, action scenes, one-liners, but it never takes the easy route and it makes smart decisions where other lesser movies might go dumb just for expediency. And as a result, it makes what's already a darkly satirical premise even darker and more cutting. For example, OCP are not good guys. They openly admit that their long-term goal in Detroit is gutting and gentrifying its inner city to create an autonomous company town called Delta City. But they're not cartoonishly evil either. Even Dick Jones has layers. One of the reasons he prefers Ed 209 over RoboCop is that turning people into cyborgs kind of skeeves him out. Speaking of Ed 209, though, it's one of the all-time great examples of benefiting by doing the unexpected. We've seen enough movies, played enough video games, etc. to know a boss fight monster when we see one. And while RoboCop vs. Ed is briefly fun to see, it's more fun to see the big dumb robot put to use as a recurring joke at the expense of a bloated, bungling, hopelessly inept defense industry. Like how they probably spent billions in research and development in this sucker and never once considered how it's supposed to, say, negotiate stairs. But the main overriding smart thing about this movie, focus. Like I said, OCP aren't the bad guys, but they are bad guys. And when the movie opens, they've already taken over the police and are well on the way to creating Delta City. And when it ends, that's still the case. RoboCop stops Boddicker's immediate crime wave and the one genuinely evil executive, but OCP isn't going anywhere. It's not even brought up as a possibility. Now that's good for story purposes, because instead of getting bogged down in some big speechifying symbolic fight the power narrative, the film can stay grounded in the personal human story of Murphy reclaiming his lost humanity. But it helps invest the film's ever-present notes of 80s political and pop culture satire.
I'd buy that for $1.
With a much darker, omnipresent edge. The bad guys already won. And that was the real big overriding take that RoboCop was delivering to Mr. and Mrs. unsuspecting 80s movie audience. It wasn't just that an amoral corporate oligarchy had seized control of a quintessential American metropolis and implicitly America itself, or that the news media had been reduced to pretty faces regurgitating propaganda, or that mainstream entertainment was dumbing down to mollify the masses. It was that RoboCop's world was already like that before the first shots were fired, and would continue to be like that no matter how satisfying the hero's own personal victory might be in the short term, because his future was really our present. Of course, everything else that's come out of the franchise since has managed to screw that up. RoboCop 2 is a thuddingly stupid, obvious movie where OCP basically is a bunch of Captain Planet villains, and RoboCop 3 doubles down on dated early 90s Japanophobia. And of course, there's a remake coming out this week, which as of this recording I have not yet seen, but I'm sure we'll talk about it real soon. Until then, yeah, that's why RoboCop still rules. I'm Bob, and that's the big picture.